Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Inquisition Update. My name's Tom Fress, and I'll be your host for the next hour. You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.net. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll continue now where we left off yesterday in the program in the book Rome and Civil Liberty by James A. Wiley. James A. Wiley, the Protestant historian, began to tell us at the conclusion of the program yesterday what use the Jesuits were making of the secret societies in Great Britain as the sappers and miners that were undermining the Protestant government, the Protestant Constitution, and helping the Jesuits to take over Great Britain, helping the Vatican to take over Great Britain and to make it Catholic. Yes, indeed, the secret societies, generally speaking, almost... That's even a mild term. Look, a secret society has no use unless it serves the Jesuits. And the Jesuits are the mother of secret societies. And the secret societies of Great Britain at the time of the writing of this book were just as useful to the Jesuits as the secret societies in our country are today. And James A. Wiley is touching on a very sensitive subject for Americans, which is just littered with secret societies. So we must address this problem. It was a problem for Protestant Great Britain. It's a problem for Protestant USA. And behind every secret society stands a Jesuit. Now he says in the first full paragraph on page 105 in the book, if you're following along, about halfway down the page, he says to these operations, the ones we mentioned yesterday, one chief theater of which are the saloons of the aristocratic circles, we must add a host of others, which also come under the category of sapping and mining. We can bestow only a single glance upon them, still reserving certain of them for fuller consideration at the after part of the work. So we're going to take just a brief look at a subject that we're going to return to later in the book. He says there is first the secret society. The headquarters of these societies are on the continent of Europe, but their affiliated branches are widely spread and are perseveringly, although stealthily active in Great Britain. Their members are mostly Jesuits. The more scholarly of the body lay themselves out to cultivate the acquaintances of the gentry and nobility and carry on the operations we've already described. Others make it their business to interpolate our literature with popish principles. Okay? One very, very accomplished segment of the Jesuits put their secret society members in positions in business and in the press where they can mix in Jesuit or popish principles. Okay? It's a slow mind control. It's a slow indoctrination. He says while others hang on about our newspapers, okay, they're infiltrating the newspapers in the capacity of reporters or of regular contributors or even of writers of occasional paragraphs. Okay? So the Jesuits put their men in positions where they will be frequently read in the news. They're the ones who are subtly Romanizing this country with very subtle, but Romish principles. Okay? He says, in 100 instances, does the pen of the Jesuit meet the eye of the public, while the public suspects no such thing. Others ply the trading and working classes, for Rome is taking hold of society by its two ends, the aristocrats and the laboring people. Okay? He says, sometimes doffing the clerical vestment or courting disputations on the streets, espousing at times the side of Protestantism, that by their weak defense of it, they may do it more damage than they could possibly do by their strong attack. Okay? So they even pretend to have a public debate between Protestants and Catholics. And the debate is so fashioned ahead of time that the Protestant side of the debate always loses. In other words, they seed the Protestant side with their own friends. And so that the outcome of the debate always lies in favor of Roman Catholicism. This is an age-old strategy. And here James A. Wiley gives us a note. He says this plan, to the author's knowledge, is now being adopted at Rome. It is not uncommon for the priests to hold public disputations, public debates in the churches, one taking the popish, the other taking the Protestant side. The Protestant champion is, of course, always defeated. The author has been told of cases in our great cities which leave no doubt that the same tactic is being pursued in our country. So that's what's happening in the United States as well. Public debate, side by side, evangelical and Catholics, and the Protestants always lose the debate. The greater face is always placed on Roman Catholicism. That's just one of the many, many tactics used by Rome to indoctrinate the people. Now he says, then there is the school. That same church, which has grossly neglected education in Italy and Spain, professes in our country to be a great educator. Abroad, she loves darkness. Here, it suits her to be the patron of the light. The amount and kind of education which are communicated in the popish schools depends altogether on the circumstances. In the neighborhood of a vigorous Protestant school, the Roman Catholic Church educates well, striving to outdo the Protestant teacher, and drafts his pupils into her own school. Where competition does not exist, such as in Roman Catholic countries, she generally takes care not to create it. Okay? Where there's no competition, say in Spain or Italy or France or Portugal or the South American countries, Rome takes no opportunity to promote competition between the Roman Catholic Church and the Protestant Church. She's just comfortable with ignorance. And the schools are destitute of learning. And it says, in Poland, the Jesuits adopted the plan of communicating to their pupils some fragments of knowledge, but without teaching them to read. Okay? This is critical. This is one critical aspect of the Romanization of any country. To get control of the education system, not only to indoctrinate the children what to believe and what not to believe, for instance, evolution versus creationism, which is a direct attack upon the Bible, but overall to make sure the graduates are poor readers, if not illiterate. Okay? They'll adopt these schools, they'll build these fancy schools and attract all the people to them and literally lecture them. That's their education, comes through lecture and other forms of education, but no direct reading of sources. Okay? They don't teach them to read. They teach them what to think. They don't teach them to read. Now, what lasting problem does that cause? They can't think for themselves. Besides that, and most importantly, they can't read the Bible. That's the object. Because it is the Bible that always identifies and condemns the Roman Catholic Church. The Bible is the worst enemy of popery. Anyone who reads the Bible without a preconceived notion and just simply reads the text can come to no other conclusion but that Rome is the Antichrist of the Bible. The Vatican, the papacy, the Roman Catholic Church is the synagogue of Satan. It's vividly described over and over and over, and even made reference to indirectly in the New Testament. She's perfectly identified. And when one reads with capability the Bible, without being indoctrinated by a Jesuitized pastor, a futurist pastor, the plain text of the Bible tells us the truth. And it was the main instrument of Protestantism against the Roman Catholic Church, the knowledge of the truth out of the Bible. So the schools are designed to teach people what to think, but without giving them the skill to read for themselves. They don't want you to think for yourself. They don't want the Holy Spirit to be able to witness to you directly. So they simply prevent you from reading. Or at least, if they can't prevent you from reading, they'll make you such a poor reader that you can't comprehend what you're reading. Okay, the degree to which a nation is literate is the degree to which that nation is Protestant, especially when the Bible is championed. Okay. So, in Poland, the Jesuits adopted the plan of communicating to their students some fragments of knowledge without teaching them to read. The plan's pretty generally followed in the Jesuit school on the continent at this day, where the youth are taught their catechism by rote, in other words, by memory, but their letters, lest when they grow up, they should read bad books. Okay? They're not taught to read. Okay? They're taught their lessons from the catechism, the Roman Catholic catechism, and that is taught by rote, by memory. Okay? But not their letters. They're not supposed to learn to read. Unless, when they grow up, they should read bad books. What are the bad books? The Bible, first and foremost, and then Protestant literature. Okay? So, they're taught, as we know, visually in this country. They read by pictures, but the illiteracy rate in this country is getting worse and worse and worse, and the ultimate target of that teaching is that few would even bother to read the Scripture. That's how you Romanize a country. Prevent them from reading the Scripture. He says there is some reason to fear that the same peculiar mode of instruction is practiced to some extent, where circumstances will allow, in Great Britain. An illustrative instance once fell upon this author's eye. He chanced to visit the nuns' school supported by the government, supported by government money in Belfast. Okay, Ireland was a Roman Catholic country, at least the southern two-thirds of it. And, of course, the Roman Catholic Church was funded by tax dollars. The priests were paid by tax dollars. The schools were funded by tax dollars. And the teachers were funded by tax dollars. Okay? So it's a Roman Catholic society. He says, I chanced to visit the nuns' school supported by government money in Belfast and found a class of some dozen students standing primer in hand. Okay? They had their curriculum or their lesson in their hands. And he says, picking out one boy of the age of about 8 years old or thereabouts, the author asked him to read the page which he held open. He read it with all ease, but with more than the ordinary rapidity. The author turned over a few leaves and requested the boy again to read. He did so a second time, with the same ease and with the same rapidity. On examining, the author found that the pupil, instead of reading the page now open, which indeed he appeared to be able to read, had simply recited the former page. The author could hardly resist the conclusion that the boy had conned this page by heart. In other words, he'd been taught it by heart to recite it, and stood there prepared to recite it to other and any visitor who might embrace or who might chance to drop into the school. So the kid couldn't read. Okay? He appeared to be able to read, but he was simply reciting what he had been taught by rote, by memory, and was left out in front as an example to those visiting the school of how well he could read. Not that he could just read, but that he could read very, very fast. And all he was doing was reciting what he had learned by heart, and he couldn't read at all. The object is to prevent them from being able to read the Scriptures or other Protestant books. Now, he says, then there come the reformatories, the hospitals, the prisons, and in all of which Rome professes to be giving intellectual or spiritual instruction. It is simply a grand sapping and mining enterprise carried on at the nation's expense. By these measures, Rome seeks to persuade the world that she is a great spiritual generator, and that she is deeply concerned about the highest welfare of society, while in fact she is but displacing the only true regenerator of the world, which is the gospel. So, the Bible tells us, does it not, to visit the prisoner? Sure. Rome knows this. And Rome knows that if we're obedient to the Scripture, we will seek the hospitals, the reformatories, the prisons, and witness to the captive to set them free by the gospel. So, to displace us in our God-given responsibility, Rome simply takes over and makes sure the gospel is never heard, but that only popish tenets are taught. So this is what happens when Protestants fail to perform their commission. Rome takes over. Rome knows that her greatest enemy is the Bible, and so it's displaced wherever they can focus their attention. Now he continues, Rome's Grand Missionary Institute is the title of the next portion. He says, we are disposed to view the whole state and condition of the Irish race as presenting a ground of greater anxiety to the friends of truth and a source of great peril to the Protestantism of the nation, and indeed to the Christianity of the world, than any other that at this moment exists on the face of the earth. In the degradation of that race, the Church of Rome has found a lever of tremendous power of aggrandizing herself. What that church accomplished in other days by the arms of France, or by the wealth of Spain, or by the statesmanship of Italy, she's now doing, and doing more successfully, by means of the mental debasement and physical destitution of Ireland. In short, Ireland in her hands has become a great missionary institute. The swarms of immigrants in rags which are cast upon our shores here in England, which crowd our cities, which burrow in our poorhouses and swelter in our jails, are just the missionaries which that great institute is sending forth to spread the superstition and the dominion of Rome over the British Empire. No weapon comes wrong to the hand of Rome, and while dreading her power as well as we may, we are compelled we are compelled to admire the genius of a church which can so adapt her policy to every age and to all countries. Okay? Rome never changes. World conquest is her ultimate goal, but she changes her tactics, okay, to suit the age or to suit the circumstances. He says that church has seen deeper into the matter of Irish destitution than any of us. True, she has raised a mighty outcry about that destitution. She has made the world resound with her lamentations over the sufferings of the Irish race and the oppressions of the Saxon tyrants. And she has managed to get credit for full sincerity in her well-stimulated sorrow. Most men have thought that the Church of Rome was in very deed overwhelmed by the sight of a race so degraded and so miserable, and that if the priesthood of the Roman Catholic Church had the power, by word or sign, of annihilating that misery, it would be instantly ended, and tomorrow's sun would rise upon Ireland and flourish and happy the country. Trade filling the cities, cultivation clothing its fields, an abundance of bread gladdening all of its dwellings. We must take leave to doubt whether, though the priesthood could simply by a word charm Ireland into a happy country, they would speak that word. Have the priesthood a motive to annihilate the misery of Ireland? Have they not rather a motive to perpetuate it? Were they to annihilate the degradation of the Irish race, they would not, to a large extent, shear the locks of their own strength and dry up a source of power which far transcends any other instrumentality at this hour in possession of their church for spreading their superstition and ascendancy over the earth. Let us illustrate our point by taking a single instance. We all know that among other orders of men in her service, Rome keeps an order of monks. For some of her clergy, she provides splendid palace, a luxurious table, and robes of purple. Others she attires in a hair shirt, a girdle with spikes of iron, and throwing a wallet over their shoulders, she sends them forth with naked foot and shaven crown to beg door to door. That mendicant monk renders as effectual service to the cause of the Roman Catholic Church as that princely cardinal. The cloak of serge and pilgrim staff of the one are as essential to the good of the general body as the purple robe and gilded chariot of the other. And why may not that church, which serves her interests so effectually by maintaining this gradation and variety among her clergy, serve her interests no less effectually by maintaining a similar gradation and variety among the nations subject to her? Why may not the church find it for the general good to keep a mendicant nation? Ireland is that nation. The Irish are the monks of the papal world. She takes them fresh from the sod, all unwashed as they are, and without putting a single patch upon their garments or a single loaf in their wallets. She sends them forth, their outer man all aflutter with rags, and their inner man all on fire with zeal, to beg for the love of the Virgin and the glory of the Roman Catholic Church among the wealthy heretical nations of Christendom. Do you get the picture that James A. Wiley is painting? Just as the Roman Catholic Church has destitute monks to fill the coffers of the Roman Catholic Church, she has mendicant nations too. And Ireland is that nation. We'll be back right after the message. You're listening to the Inquisition Update on First Amendment Radio.
book of Revelation says, "The spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ." This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today, so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie, with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character, as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy, in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the left behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.
Welcome back to the second half hour of Inquisition Update. Now you're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com. If you'd like to support the program here at Inquisition Update, please support First Amendment Radio. And if you'd like to contact me, please do so by email. My email address is tom@seawaves.us. Okay, James A. Wiley has pointed out very effectively that a poor, destitute, mendicant monk of the Roman Catholic Church, barefoot and shaven, tattered in rags, going door to door, pleading poverty, pleading upon the sympathies of the nation, is just as valuable to the Roman Catholic Church as her monks, or rather her cardinals. Okay? They each serve a specific purpose for the church. From the glorious cardinal in all of his splendor, scarlet robe and all, well-educated, public orator, spiritual leader of the so-called Christian church, the monk is just as important for the overall operations of the church. And so, likewise, is a whole nation of destitute Irish Roman Catholics. Now, Rome put it out that during about this time there was a potato famine in Ireland. And the nation was ready to starve to death. She put herself out as the great champion for the survival, the rescue, the charitable resurrection of that starving nation. She begged and pleaded all over the country for private and corporate contributions to save the Irish. And through that effort, she got a reputation of being the most charitable, quote-unquote, Christian church on the planet. But does the papacy really want Ireland to be as gloriously arrayed as the cardinal? Or is she better served by leaving Ireland completely destitute? What nation in the world then would serve as her mendicant monk? I maintain that if the world maintains its current course, the United States of America will eventually be the papacy's international mendicant monk. Once Protestantism is destroyed, Roman Catholicism has taken hold from top to bottom and everything in between. The Bible will be suppressed, literacy will plummet, and this will be a nation of tattered, barefoot, bald, superstitious American Roman Catholics. There's no one going to help the United States of America if it doesn't return to its Protestant roots. Now, you might think that's an overstatement. Look how the wealth of this country has disappeared. Look how the literacy rate is plummeting. And tell me that I've gone too far. Okay, we all know the sad story, says A.J. Wiley, of these poor Italian boys whom we see at times upon our streets. Torn from Italy with the tint of Italy's sun upon their cheek and the music of Italy's tongue upon their lip, they are compelled to grind in our city for the avaricious masters. Rome is doing the same thing on a vastly greater scale. She has taken the poor Irish race, so amply endowed with native genius, so rich in generous sympathies and in loving and trustful dispositions, and she is leading them out over the world to grind sad music indeed, and all for pennies to fill her coffers. Most indulgent mistress, most compassionate church. Okay? She's using a whole nation to plead poverty, to draw sympathy, and only to increase the coffers of the Roman Catholic Church. Rome had no desire to raise up Ireland into affluence and wealth. She was her mendicant monk. And it says, when they have gathered a crowd and attracted notice by their doleful strains, sung upon their harp, which has so long been attuned only to sorrow, lifting up her voice, her cries aloud, quote, "Behold the woes of this once glorious country. Pity the sorrows of this noble but downtrodden race," unquote, accompanying her words, the while with floods of tears as copious and as sincere as ever rolled down the cheek of a crocodile. In this way does Rome work her great mission institute. For the real propaganda at this hour is not at Rome, it is not at Lyons, it is in Ireland. It is where the Atlantic surge breaks high on the bleak coast of Galway, and the black bog stretches drearily out to the horizon in Connemara. And then we must bear in mind that the Church of Rome runs no risk by letting her people down into this frightful pit of moral debasement and physical wretchedness. Were the Protestant Church to let her people down into such a depth as this, she would lose them altogether. But superstition will cling to a man where Christianity would forsake him, just as a man may retain a belief in ghosts after he has cast off all belief in the existence of God. And superstition will permit a race to remain from generation to generation where the gospel would not suffer them to abide for a single hour. Were the gossip to lay hold of men in the state of the popish Irish, how soon would it pull themselves out of the gulf? It would wash and clothe them, and kindle the spark of intelligence in their bosoms. It would speedily transform the race into other men, and their country into another land. But with Romanism, it is not so. A man may lie sunk in mental darkness and in physical wretchedness, and be every whit as good a papist as if instead of standing at the bottom of the scale, he stood at the top of it. Nay, it is not only safe, it is actually profitable to the Church of Rome to leave that Irish race in this deplorable condition. By a well-understood physical law, this very degradation and wretchedness is the most favorable condition for the rapid increase of the species. And just as in the 5th century swarms upon swarm poured down from the populous north upon the Roman Empire, overwhelming both its Christianity and its civilization, so do we now see shoal after shoal issuing from the teeming land of Ireland, endangering the Protestantism of Great Britain and the Christianity of the world. But as all the rivers run into the sea and the sea is not full, so, despite all the living streams that flow so strenuously from Ireland, Ireland is not empty. So much the better for the Roman Catholic Church. If her harvest is great, she has no reason to complain that the laborers are few. What a happy missionary school is that over which she presides. She needs no funds to carry it on. Irish destitution supports itself. It needs only to be let alone to grow, and so that there is no end of the missionaries which Rome can send forth. So, what is James A. Wiley telling us? The Vatican left Roman Catholic Ireland in the depths of human depravity to draw upon the sympathies of the world and to ship those Irish poor to other nations, to do her bidding in other nations. And what were those nations? Protestant England and Protestant America. Flood after flood after flood of Irish immigrants to England and to Ireland, to America. All beholden to the Pope. All owing to the Pope their destitution, their state of life, their spiritual depravity. And they carried it all where the gospel had been preached. Now do you see the compassion, the charitable spirit of the Roman Catholic Church? That church that gets all the press for all of her charitable operations around the world. This is the charity, the true charity of the Roman Catholic Church. Wouldn't even think of lifting Ireland out of her depravity, but for the benefit that Roman Catholic Ireland makes to the Church of Rome when they infiltrate Protestant lands, to destroy Protestantism. That's what purpose the Irish served in early colonial America. And that's the very same purpose that the quote-unquote illegal aliens from the South come across our Mexican and Arizonan border, just to assist the Irish. That's why they're left in destitution in Mexico. No righteousness prevails in Mexico. It's a Roman Catholic country. The people are left destitute, superstitious, have their allegiances to their virgin, and because of an overwhelming sense of sympathy, our country pretends to offer them the plenty of this country, but not to raise them up, but to help tear us down. Protestant America. Protestantism and the Bible is the target of the quote-unquote illegal aliens coming to this country. America's becoming Catholic by the day, just as England became Catholic by the day, with flood after flood after flood of Irish Roman Catholics, poor, mendicant, monkish Roman Catholic Irish. But one doesn't even dare in this country, in the mainstream media, even suggest that those who are flooding across our border today are just as Catholic, if not more so, than the Irish that flooded into this country in the 1800s. That's too close to bigotry to get by with. In a world of ecumenism where Rome has sung the siren song and lured all the religions of the world into her bosom, one dare not criticize someone else's religion. And how convenient for Rome. He continues now, he says, these missionaries too are sent forth in that very condition in which they are best fitted for doing her work. The work of the Roman Catholic Church. All the blood that she shed in the Dark Ages by the hands of judges and executioners was as nothing compared to the blood she shed by the hands of the rabble. It was by the rabble, sometimes in the shape of mobs, sometimes in the shape of regular armies, that she carried on her crusades and massacres from the 13th to the 16th century. And when blood shall again begin to flow in this country, the first shedding of it will be by the hands of the rabble, the Roman Catholic rabble. But the main use and service, meanwhile, of the Irish race is to form a foothold for the popish hierarchy all over the Protestant world. Here James A. Wiley is telling us it's not just Ireland, or not just England that's under Vatican assault through Irish immigration. It's the United States too. And he said, what is the key by which that church, the Roman Catholic Church, has succeeded in opening the British exchequer? In other words, public funds. Do you know that Rome has her eyes set on the public funds of the nation? The Vatican doesn't financially support all of her operations. She forces the nations to finance her operations. He says, what is the key by which that church has succeeded in opening the British exchequer and drawing from it some £300,000 per year? That key is the poor Irish. Okay? Guess where your tax dollars are going today? To provide for the health care, education of all the illegal Roman Catholic Mexicans flooding into the country. Your Social Security, your jobs, your house. Well, you didn't think that the situation was so bad that you had to foreclose on the loan on your house that it couldn't benefit these Mexican Roman Catholics, do you? Well, that's exactly what happens. See, the government helps these Mexicans buy their houses that used to be yours. That's state-sponsored religion. But we dare not make the accusation. We'd be labeled a bigot, wouldn't we, in this ecumenical world? State-sponsored religion. State-sponsored Catholic religion. And what does that mean to Protestantism? It's state-sponsored destruction of Protestantism. And how did the state get controlled by the Vatican? Well, when the Protestants surrendered at Vatican Council II in 1965. This is all a result of Vatican Council II. It's all a result of ecumenism. Now are you beginning to see the consequences of the ecumenical movement? He says, but the main use and service, meanwhile, of the Irish race is to form a foothold for the popish hierarchy all over the Protestant world. That's why the Irish were allowed to come to this country, just as they were allowed, or rather, government-sponsored, to immigrate to Protestant England, to give excuse and opportunity for the growth of the Roman Catholic hierarchy. I mean, they just used a common sense argument. Most of your immigrants are Roman Catholic, therefore we're going to need more Roman Catholic priests. And so we're going to ship another boatload of Roman Catholic priests to help educate them. They're our subjects. We have a right to rule over them temporally and spiritually, and it's going to require more priests, more cardinals, more bishops, more dioceses, more papal control. And of course, Protestants are sympathetic. Well, they wouldn't want to be called a bigot. So ship us more of your priests. And that's what England did. That's what the United States did. The Vatican was running a parallel operation in Britain and the United States, shipping her Irish into both countries so as to justify more priests, more bishops' conferences, more temporal control, more Roman Catholic political establishment, more students for her Jesuit universities, and more Roman Catholic politicians for Washington, D.C. It just balloons. But we dare not talk about it. After all, we've surrendered at Vatican Council II. What happens when you raise a white flag and you surrender to the enemy, and then after surrendering and signing the documents of peace and capitulation, what happens then if you change your mind and begin to raise your arms against your enemy after once having surrendered officially? Then the enemy has full right to annihilate the opposition. If after once raising the white flag and then to return to arms, no one would have sympathy for their total annihilation. That's the law of war. And this is a war. But I repudiate ecumenism. I repudiate Vatican Council II. I return to my Protestant offense against the man of sin, the son of perdition, even if it costs me my life. And it may well cost me my life. I've already reconciled myself to that fight. And I highly recommend my listeners do the same. It's never too late to repent of ecumenism. It's never too late to return to the gospel of Jesus Christ, the real King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. He says, but the main use and service, meanwhile, of the Irish race is to form a foothold for the popish hierarchy all over the Protestant world. What is the key by which that church has succeeded in opening the British exchequer and drawing from it some 300,000 pounds a year? That key is the poor Irish. This is the open sesame before the golden doors of the treasury fall back, and the riches of Britain are poured at the Roman Catholic Church's feet. What is it that has enabled her to place her chaplains in the army and in our convict prisons? Still, it is the Irish soldier, the Irish criminal. On what pretext does she demand paid chaplains in all of our prisons? It's still the Irish. I have given you, says she, so many criminals. In return for these, I demand so many gold guineas. With these, I will manufacture more criminals and will bring me more gold guineas. And thus the two kinds of manufacture go on most preposterously together. What is it that has given to her reformatories, with their ample endowments, grants of land and money in the colonies, and schools from which the Bible is excluded in Western Canada? What is it that is feeding the already great mass of popery in the valley of Mississippi, as well as Australia? It is the Irish. Verily, in Irish destitution, she has found a mine of exhaustless wealth and of boundless power. Could you say anything less of the Mexican Roman Catholics that are coming into this country? It's just another mine of exhaustless wealth and of boundless power for the Roman Catholic papacy in America. He says the proposed poor law removal, let me try it again. The proposed Poor Law Removal Bill of 1863 strikingly shows what a valuable instrument is Ireland in the hands of the priests, and how easy it were by its means to outflank the Protestant of Great Britain and to submerge the country in a flood of Romanism. Okay? This is talking about a particular law in Great Britain that gave Rome her greatest opportunity. It says the object of that bill was to enable the Irish pauper to obtain a legal settlement on a 6-month residence in any parish of England and Scotland. Isn't that what we call government assistance? All the Irish had to do, according to this bill, was come and live in the country for 6 months, and then the government would sponsor them. Isn't that what we're doing in the United States with the Mexican Roman Catholics coming across our southern border? History's repeating itself so perfectly that it's amazing the American people can't figure it out. It's the Catholicization of the country, the de-Protestantizing of America. We'll be back tomorrow on Position Up.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.